we're going to use 3 different types of visual indicators. We'll use a hand every time I tap. Every time I hit a button on the outside of the device, we'll give you an icon, and we'll use arrows to help point out key information on screen. One of the first usage scenarios that came to mind when we started looking at guided access is when you're going to use the iPad primarily as a single-use device. So for example, the thing that immediately comes to mind is when you're using an iPad primarily as an augmentative alternative communication or AAC device. In those scenarios, or often in those scenarios, the user 95% of the time is going to be in one application trying to use it. They may have multiple iPads doing a couple different things, but they're going to be using it in one primary function, and so it's perfect. So let me show you how to set this up for an AAC user, set up guided access for an AAC user where you wouldn't want them to get out of the app. So on screen I have speech button. I'm going to tap on speech button, and I have a communication board set up already. So what I want to do is just turn on guided access. So triple tap, 1, 2, 3, and all I have to do is start. So now I'm locked in. If I tap the home button, it'll give me an error message, and now every time I want to come back to this device, it's always set up for on this page for AAC or within this app. So if you had multiple pages, then you could scroll within the app. So this is perfect for that application. Now the other comment that I will make is, if you go to our setup video, there's also a setting to be able to dim the screen. So if you're going to do AAC and it's always going to be locked as an AAC device or single-use device, then I would also put the screen saver on so that it will protect the battery life. I want to show you a guided access usage scenario we're calling in-app control. There are times where you're going to want to prevent a user from touching certain buttons inside of an application. So I want to show you how to set that up using guided access. On screen, I'm going to tap on the flashcard app, and it launches the flashcard app. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see the Facebook and Twitter buttons. So if I tap on those buttons, it's going to launch the web browser and knock me out of this application and put me in a totally different other application. So if I want to prevent a user from doing that, I'm going to use guided access to do that. So let me show you how to set that up. Tap on the home screen 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and now you're in the guided access control panel. And so I just want to draw a box around Facebook and Twitter, and so you can see me do that. And there's my box. So I just now press the start button, and guided access is now started, and you can see in the upper left hand corner that it's grayed out where I drew my little box, and if I touch on those boxes, it does not launch out Facebook and Twitter. So that's exactly what I want. Now let me show you some problems that we found. In the upper right hand corner, you can see the setup button. So if I tap on the setup button, you can see that. You can see the mute button, and you can see a lock button. Now I'm going to use guided access to draw a circle around those to prevent my users from accessing those, and I want to show you what happens. 1, 2, 3 to launch guided access. I need to enter my passcode because I'm in guided access mode. Type in my passcode, and I'm going to draw a box around that rectangle. So there it is. There's my rectangle. My box around those 3 items, and I'm going to press resume now to launch guided access again. Now with the Facebook, and I'm tapping on Facebook, that didn't work. But if I tap on to the setup button, even though it's grayed out, watch what happens. So I'm tapping now. There it launches setup, and I can hit the done button, and not only was the setup button and the done button underneath the restricted area for guided access, but they both worked. So what does that mean? It means that buttons have different access levels within an application, but it also means from an end user perspective, you need to test all of your guided access well before you're going to use it with an end user to make sure it works the way that you want it to work. Some buttons are going to work, and some areas of the screen are going to work perfectly. Other areas, like setup buttons, may or may not work depending on if the developer has written for guided access or not, and depending on how that program is written for that button. So test. That's the answer. I think the usage scenario that gets people the most excited about guided access is the idea that they don't have to use a plastic plate or keep their hand over the home button to prevent users from switching from app to app. So let me show you how you would do that. If I'm in a group setting and I want to launch this, I'm going to launch this and use this application, I would then need to put it into guided access mode, triple tap to get it into guided access mode, and then hit start. Then I can hand that off to a user, and if the user tries to get out of the app by hitting on the home button, then they get the familiar error message. The problem that we see is in an environment where you're switching from app to app to app, using guided access just needs to be managed because you have a couple of extra steps. I've got to triple tap. I've got to enter my passcode. I then need to end guided access. I need then hit the home button, then launch the second app, then triple tap again, and hit start to launch it for the second app. So as long as it's managed, you can work around the extra time it's going to take. For more information, go to iPads4SpecialNeedsBook.com, where you'll find more videos, other resources like cheat sheets, and a book on how to use the iPad for your special needs user.